in Nigeria is difficult. What are you talking? And I can also understand why my ministry is growing at the rate at which it's growing. Because the kind of things I'm sharing, people know that it's either I'm serious or I have to stay the long haul to achieve results. Because you see, people, I've lived in America for a season. And I tried to do evangelism in America the way we do in Nigeria. And I started by saying something like, God is a good God. They say, yes. Then I said, He will take care of you. He said, how do you mean? I'm serious. So I said, well, God will help you. He said, how? How does God help people? I remember somebody telling me, he said, look, if I want a pair of jeans, I just work extra hours and I just go from the shop, go from my workplace to the shop and I buy jeans. It's $25, $50. So how does God help people? Then Femi told me a story this week. It's not Femi, it's not me. He said a pastor friend was visiting another pastor friend in Germany and he was going to preach and he warned his friend, said, look, this is Germany, be careful what gospel you preach here. And then the man went to preach. Thank God I don't know their name, so I can't be wrong. He went to preach and now told them while he's preaching that he said that God bought him a car. He told them in Germany that God bought him a car. After the service, they came to the pastor and said, how does God buy a car for somebody? How does God? Pastor Sanders that came here some years ago, and his people went around churches. When they went back to Ukraine, one of his most important members, who is a member of the President Council, stopped coming to church for months. He said to him that if the gospel I heard in Nigeria is what we are using idea to try to preach here, I better run from you before you start. Because the guy said, he's my friend today, Pastor Andre, he said he went from church after church, that all he was hearing was breakthrough, what God was going to do. He never heard what people can do for God. He said that that's not the Christianity I received. My Christianity is a Christianity of responsibility. It's what I am responsible for doing for God. I'm not serving God for what He can do for me. Okay, so take a key word, that disciple. You see, if somebody is not a disciple and you're telling them not to divorce their wife, even if he's a bishop, he will still divorce his wife. But the reason he's going to divorce his wife is not because of his wife, it's because he is not a disciple. So take that word seriously.
That's correct.
Take it seriously. Disciple is a student, a learner that follows Christ to the point of death. A disciple will accept responsibility for Nigeria. The reason we are decaying as a nation is that God does not have sons in this country.
Good.
He has people that are using him, advancing their purpose, their own personal agenda, using the name of God. That's why there's corruption everywhere. Okay, so take that word. It's simple. That's why I said with those simple things. That word disciple. Look, when you're a disciple, when you go to bed at night, the way you spoke throughout the day will be reviewed by God for you. Your relationship with your driver will be reviewed by God. You don't need to. The way you talk to your neighbor is a big deal. Okay, so let me go forward. I know that I won't finish. So just give me 5 minutes to go. So this is Dallas Willard is a theologian. This is his rendition as a Greek scholar of the Great Commission. And the meaning is clearer. He said, I have been given say over all things in heaven and in the earth. As you go, therefore, make disciples of all kinds of people, submerge them in the Trinitarian presence, and show them how to do everything I've commanded. And now look, I'm with you every minute until the job is done. Now, the difference are clear. When you look at as you go, not go and make, as you go. Let me tell you why it's relevant. You see, I want to ask you, most of the calls that President Obama makes, whom does he make them to? To other presidents. In fact, I was telling them in church that I read, our president said that John Kerry calls him very often. I said, if I was him, I would never take that call. He's not my name. No secretary, if I was president of Nigeria, the secretary, if you call me, I won't take a call. Let your boss call me. Am I your mate? Can you imagine, who else can call Obama from this country, apart from President Jonathan? So why are you taking a call from the Secretary of State? On what basis? I won't take the call. Because presidents talk to presidents, and secretaries talk to secretaries, period. That's what Jesus meant. that in your normal daily life, the people that your kind of people are the people you can disciple. Doctors disciple doctors. Or can a pastor disciple a president? It's a problem. First of all, you are going to be accused of brown envelope. What are you doing in diaspora? You don't care. It's a problem. It's a big problem. I'm serious. Because when you go there, even if you're a prophet, how often will you prophesy? Do you understand what I'm saying? But that's the challenge. So he says, as you go, in your daily life, as you go. And then he says that all kinds of people, it's not nations, Algeria, Ghana, those are true. But it's also the ethnic groups within the country, the people group, all kinds of people. So let's go from there. This is God's original calling to man. Based on Genesis 1:26, is the cultural man. He said, exercise dominion over all of the earth, right? And Jesus reiterated that assignment when he said, preach the gospel to every creature and make disciples of nations. Okay, so here's the calling of the church. Raise disciples. Who raised disciples? The secret of Christ was to raise disciples. Who raised disciples, right? These disciples were expected to fulfill the Great Commission. This is the gospel of the kingdom. Disciples who accept responsibility for themselves and for the environment of the earth. This is a rigorous process. First for yourself. That means living right. What we call personal righteousness based on Christ, not the law. But once you are going through that process, you then have to accept responsibility for your society. But an aspect of life where God has called you. So for him, for Femi, my brother and friend, well, he's an accountant, but he's a businessman. He has many capacities. For Femi, he has a degree in law, he has a degree in business. He's a strategist, he's a journalist, he writes. Okay, he has a circle of influence that if I try to influence that circle of influence, I can't cope. I don't speak their language. I was saved as a teenager in University of Ife before I became OAU, so I didn't go to OAU. And on that campus, I realized that God was calling me to do what I'm doing today. Because my father was a clergyman, so I had an inclination or an inkling. And it became a challenge. But I have followed that path. So I understand that even though my brothers are professionals, and some of them, for a lot of them are also pastors, okay, he's a pastor, but he's a PE practitioner. My youngest brother works for ExxonMobil, he's been there since 98. My other brother worked for the One Back, and so it's like, maybe, you know, they do all these kind of things, right? I have to accept responsibility for my life. Then I find that even as a pastor, many of the pastors around me did not even go to high-level education. So when I looked at that, I tried to understand what God was saying. Okay, what is asking me and calling me to do? That's what God meant. What is God calling you to do? What area of life has God called you? Let's go on. The Great Commission from the Great Omission from the Great Commission is not obedience to Christ, but discipleship, apprenticeship to Him. The church has raised successful people who are many church goers, but they are not even Christians. Many people, because it was disciples that were called Christians, not Christians who were struggling to be disciples. We are very successful people in church. Look, think about the things that people hear and what we do about it. Okay, God is going to bless you. You're going to become a millionaire. You know. Since I became a Christian, I was saved. I was born into Methodism. My mother is here today. My father was a Methodist clergyman. Then I got saved on campus as a member of Deeper Life Campus Fellowship. So I was in Deeper Life for more than 10 years. The gospel that I received, I didn't even know. Honestly, don't laugh at me. I know the clap is okay. But they didn't even promise me that God bless people for serving Him. They told me that serving God is a command. Yes. I'm telling you the truth. I didn't expect. Look, I belong to a fellowship where we didn't wear jeans. We used to debate when we have fellowship. The men are one side, the girls are one side. I'm telling you, that's how I grew up. So now, of course, I know that God blesses. In fact, He says, "I'll bless you to become a blessing." But you see, we are using God in this country too much. So I often say to myself, what about if God didn't bless you? What about if God doesn't bless you? But I know that God blesses. I know. I know that God takes covenant seriously and takes discipleship seriously. I've experienced it in my personal life, and I know that most of us here have. We live in Nigeria, a land where we need miracles even to have light. So I know we have experienced God. So I want to say that we need to be careful that the reason why the problems that Femi is talking about is persisting. The greatest problem God has is the church. Amen. In fact, the only problem in Nigeria is the church. The only problem God has in this country, God's total solution to man's total problem anywhere in the world is the body, the church. That's the only organization he works through. So by the way, coming back to the conversation in my limited time, when we are actually very, very excited about voting in a Muslim president, this is about APC or PDP, you are actually calling the result yourself, because it's only a failed man that when he's dying finds somebody from outside of his heritage to hand over his power to. Only, look, if a dying man looks at all his sons and they're all useless, and he calls the village and says, just find me a son, an adopted son, to hand over my inheritance, that man has failed. That is where Nigeria is. So that is a very serious matter. Now, it's not about the personality of the person. Don't misunderstand me. That if that's your best, with all the noise we're making, we have failed. It's a very serious matter. So don't think that even when God saying, because I'm part of that school, say, what's God saying? And I've heard in prophecy what he's saying. But that thing that God is saying is not an endorsement. That God chooses a man in a particular time in history does not mean that that man is God's best. It's just that that man is the only person to pursue his agenda at that point in time. That's who is available. That's who is available. Look, I can challenge you in this room. I work with technocrats, people like Femi Oke and Obein, all this. I work at, look, these people are in private sector making a lot of money, right? And we have banks. How many banks made it to the global 100 or 50 in the last few months? How many of them? Is it 50 or 100? Up to 5 of them. Go and look at the streets where those banks are. Access Bank made it. Go and look at the headquarters. It's nonsense. So the environment from where you're making the money does not benefit from you. That's the kind of Nigeria we have. Sorry for calling one name of God. I'm not the enemy. But the point I'm making is that we need to understand the seriousness of the issues we're dealing with. How can you be declaring total global profit in a squalor? So the greatest issue facing the world today, with all its heartbreaking needs, is whether those who by profession or culture are identified as Christians will become disciples, students, apprentices, practitioners of Christ, steadily learning from me how to live the life of the kingdom of the heavens into every corner of human existence. Will they break out of the churches to be his church, to be without human force or violence in his mighty force for good on earth, drawing the churches after them toward the eternal purpose of God? In other words, we will stop celebrating the buildings and the success of the local assemblies and actually be the kind of church that Jesus talked about. And when I say that, I say it with humility. What church did Jesus leave behind? What building did he leave behind? What did Jesus even leave behind? He just left a bunch of men. Discipleship is about men. Yes. If you raise men, most problems will be solved. In fact, in ministry, pastors know. See, pastors in ministry know that the pastors that raise men don't lack money. But pastors that raise money always look for money. And they look for it till they die. People that always raise money, they're always raising money. But people that raise men, it doesn't take long in their ministry. They find that this thing they call money is inferior to man. That one man will stage his life and say, all your tickets, I'll be buying. They will be buying. That's how life is. Okay, when I was growing up, my parents didn't have a lot of money because my father was a clergyman. He was a clergyman when clergymen didn't steal. That was the era in which he grew up, where it was a calling. He told us as our father that I was a young boy, and people were saying, what will you be? I raised my hand, I'll be a minister. Of course, he didn't know what it meant. And he became a minister, became a missionary, even within Nigeria. Look, I know that all they had, they used to educate us. All my siblings went to federal universities at that time, okay? Of course, I don't want to sound condescending, but when they started building state universities, people say, we didn't know whether it was going to survive the project, right? Yes, because you had the Benin, Ife, all these places. So they said, look, let's go to the one that we know. That's how we went to school. Myself and my younger brother, we all went to unity schools. And of course, you know the competition of national common entrance. I mean, people, you have to do the lesson, do all those stuff, and so on and so forth. They gave us education. they used the resources, the limited resources they had, to pour into us. My father is late, but my mother, in her older age, does not stand waiting for a bus.
Hallelujah.
Right? Not because she's anti-boss. It's because she raised human beings. Is that not? I sent my car driver to go and pick her. No, I'm not even a rich man. She says she wants to come. I said, go and pick her. She's my mother. She raised me. Go and pick her. If she didn't raise me, both her and me, we'll be looking for money. We may even jam inside the money. It's the same thing. It's the same thing. The church. So the question before us, okay, is how do you change nations? How much time do you have? 5 minutes. Okay, so I'll wind down because I knew I would never end, right? So this is the African challenge. This is a vision or an encounter America had in 1997. Some of us would have heard about it. He said they were in Addis Ababa in Ethiopia in 1997, and that they went for a conference, and she was praying. He was praying with his friend because they got there a few days earlier and decided to fast and pray. So why they prayed? That we had an encounter with God, and then God said to him that as an intercessor, he said by that time they've been praying for 21 years. From 1976, when he got involved with Elton, to 1997. He said that God said to them, you have been praying for 21 years. He said that the first thing that got his attention that he didn't know that God counted numbers, even though it's a book of numbers. So in that experience, he said, yes, it's true, 21 years. Then he said that your continent and your nations in Africa have problems that prayers alone cannot solve. He said, God said to him, number one, the foundations of your nations were not laid in the scriptures. So people say, America is a declining nation. But the reason why they have had sustained success for hundreds of years is because of the foundations laid on scripture. Not that every founding father was Christian, but the overriding influence was Christian. Number two, he says, you do not have servant leaders in government. What it means is you didn't have disciples. Number three, he says, the leaders you have do not know how to apply biblical dynamics to governance. He says, go and raise leaders. He said, if let's say to God, what do I say? Go and raise leaders. This was 1997, right? Okay. So, I mentioned this on February 1st, that in America, colonial America, the founding fathers, the priests, the election sermons, which they preached without being partisan, but just to encourage people to perform their civic responsibility. This is what it said. It's urged election of Christians only, men who subjected themselves to the rule of Christ's kingdom. I want to explain that statement in my limited time, and maybe this might be my last slide. Why did they make that statement? Why did they say elect only Christians? I know that I cannot say that in Nigeria, because if I do, it's not okay. Because Nigeria is not a Christian state. But why did they say that in America? Why? Let me tell you why. You see, Obeyemi covered that. They understood man's fallen nature. That even the best of us cannot be trusted. The best of us. That yes, there are two types of righteousness. Righteousness exalts a nation. There's personal righteousness, there's institutional righteousness. Somebody said, what about Lee Kuan Yew? Lee Kuan Yew practiced institutional righteousness, which was based on his righteousness by law. He's not a Christian to the best of my knowledge, but he lived a right life. And then built a system that even hates him. That means that if he wanted to steal, he could not steal. I don't know if you understand. You know, they talk about corporate governance. Lechi is here. Corporate governance is that you build a system where you are not carrying the checkbook from your company about. You can. You incorporated it. You own it. But a time comes, you will make the decision. If I'm going to grow beyond myself, it's not about my checkbook. Is that not true? Yes. Okay, now go back to this slide. They said election of Christians, they understood. So in Europe, Europe gave America their framework. In Europe, in Geneva, John Calvin and his team read Isaiah 33:22, right? And they saw the three arms of government. They saw judiciary, the legislature, and the executive arm. And they placed them in different cities because they said, don't put them in one city. That absolute power corrupts absolutely. Then somebody says to us, okay, but we are Christians. That that if we are Christians, what is going on? I've already clarified that we have many Christians, but they're not really Christians. Because you can't be a Christian except a disciple. And they're not many disciples. I'm sorry. We are all struggling. When I say that, I don't exclude myself. I'm saying there are not many people that can even die for the Christian faith in Nigeria. For starters, there are not many of us that are practicing our faith the way Christ wanted us to practice it. But when I come back to this place, the main point I want to make here is this, is that, do you know that I can never look at a man that doesn't know Christ and say he's a man of integrity? I mean personally. I'm telling you. You may look at me and say, what do you mean? So when people are saying, he's a man of integrity, they say he's over 70 years, he doesn't have money. In fact, that makes him more dangerous. When I see a man that old, that doesn't have money, I say, what are you looking for? In fact, I fear the person. Because I've been a Christian since I was 17 or 18 years. I struggle to be a Christian every day. I know I met Christ. I know I'm filled with the Holy Spirit. And I live in Lagos. And I fight with my life to practice my faith. Then I see somebody that doesn't have the grace that I have. Then it says he's an integer. His whole is a lie. It's a complete lie. You say, but Pastor, let me tell you why I can talk like this. Because the Bible says in 1 Peter 4:18 that if the righteous scarcely be saved, where shall your righteous, where shall your godly be? Let me tell you something. The Christian is scarcely saved. So the unchristian is not saved at all. At all. At all. Look, take purity for example. The world defines purity as lack of purity as fornication. Do you understand? Okay. But you know as a Christian that the definition of purity is that your heart is pure. That means that you cannot be watching any kind of movie. The women, I tell them, this is where I'm going to be done. I say that I've been married, this is my 15th year in marriage, that a few times in my life, I've gone to watch a movie with my wife. When I get there, I sleep off. Because most times maybe I'm tired, but I thank God because it means that when I go home, I don't remember what they were showing on the screen. Right? My wife is a woman, she can watch anything, she'll talk about it, she even interprets the movie, she'll tell me the plot. So I say, how do you know all these things? And I ask her, these images you see, doesn't it ever affect you? All these people, naked man, naked woman, she just be looking at me. So I said, women are really different from men. I said, as a man, I cannot be watching a naked woman, I will die. Yes, I don't watch movies. How can I be building again what I destroyed? How can I, as a man, just sit there and allow somebody to enter my living room and be corrupting me at my own cost? Kai. It's not allowed. But I was scarcely saved. I know. So when you are now talking about, you say Nigeria is this, Nigeria is that, they are leaving all these resources in the hands of unsaved men. What do you expect? They will steal the money. That's exactly what's happening. Except the church produces enough righteousness in society. Society will decay and ultimately destroy. God bless you.
Thank you, Pastor John. Thank you. We're moving into the Q&A section now. Is there anyone with questions where your question hasn't been collected yet? Does anyone have the step?
Didn't mention it because of time. Somebody was saying on television today that the wars of the 21st century are going to be won in classrooms. Because that is where the minds of the children of the 21st century will be developed. It was just before a documentary on Singapore where a BBC documentary, Singapore is 50 years this year, and she was talking about the fact that her grandfather came from India into Singapore, and he came as a penniless, indentured servant, only better than a slave. He came to work in the palm oil plantations of Malaysia. But in 3 generations, they had built a multi-billion-dollar empire. And the person who took over from Lee Kuan Yew, the founder of the nation, spoke, Prime Minister Goh. And he said, we recognize that our most important resource was our people. In every nation, it's the same. Pastor John has talked about it in the context of the church. We're building the church really is about building the people. But building a nation is also about building the people. Whether we're talking about the church or the nation, whether we're talking about Christians or unbelievers, if we do not train the minds of our people, we cannot even practice this democracy, as you have already seen. Why did the missionaries that brought the gospel to Nigeria, why did they focus on starting schools? They were preaching the gospel, they were starting schools, and they were opening clinics. Keep the people alive. Then educate them. Train them up to be able to read the Bible. The single most important thing that we need to do in this nation, in terms of allocation of our resources, is educating our people. And until we begin to do it, we will continue to have the problems that we have. A very big chunk of the problem of militancy is a problem of literacy. I'm not saying it's the only cause, but until we begin to make an investment in developing the minds and the potential of our people, we will continue to struggle. Thank you.
The first one, I think it's directed at you, Mr. Femi Edu. It says, you said agriculture is not the solution to employment in Nigeria. So what is the solution to unemployment in Nigeria? Which economic section is the solution?
It's like making salad. There are lots of ingredients that will go in. When I said agriculture is not the solution, I said agriculture is not the silver bullet that will kill unemployment, in the sense that it's not the only thing. Agriculture will create some jobs. In fact, it will create lots of jobs, but it will not create enough jobs to solve the problem. Right? And as agriculture becomes more and more sophisticated, it creates fewer and fewer jobs. Because you replace men with machines. Okay? And it's already happening. Now, one of the easiest ways to create jobs in Nigeria is, again, that thing that Pastor John said about things being counterintuitive. Think about it. What is the easiest business to go into in Nigeria? Any suggestions? The easiest thing to do? Yes. On every street corner you have people trading. One of the biggest impediments to trade in Nigeria is government, because we have an import prohibition list. We banned the importation of lots of things. So on one day, the Federal Executive Council, made up of the President and all of the ministers and everybody of cabinet rank, sat in the council chambers in Abuja, and they banned importation of finished textiles, importation of clothing. Now the President and everyone else that was there was dressed from head to toe in imported clothing, but they banned it. So they can catch planes, go abroad and shop. But every time we do that, we're exporting jobs. Give an example. About some time back now, we opened the Palms shopping center in Nigeria, and it was the first proper shopping center opened in Nigeria for people shopping indoors in a very long time. People who are in the older age group here will remember a time in Nigeria when most of the shopping was done in Kingsway and UTC and Leventis stores and so forth. But the shopping came out onto the streets in the late 70s and the 80s. And we're now going back into the malls. However, when the Palms was built, and Actis, the foreign private equity firm that invested with the local owner, saw the success of it, they decided to do the same thing in Ghana. So they took the same team, the same people, the same architects, the same Nigerian project managers, and they went to Accra to build the Accra Mall. And for those of you who've been to Accra, you see the Accra Mall and you shop there. But the Accra Mall is much bigger than the Palms, isn't it? Why is that so? It's not the income of the people in Ghana. Their income is actually lower per head than ours. There's only one reason. There's no import prohibition list in Ghana. So all the retailers built bigger shops in the Accra Mall. And because they built bigger shops, they employed more people. So for the same investment, more jobs were created in Ghana than here. Think about it. If you go to the airports, there are customs people charging people duty because Nigerians are coming back with suitcases full of merchandise. Because everybody that can catch a plane goes abroad and goes to shop. If those shops were here, where would the money be spent? Here. Where would the jobs be created?
Yeah.
In Accra Mall, you find the shops are full of attendants who are kids who have finished their O-levels waiting to go to university. They're earning income with which they're going to help their parents with school fees when they go to university. So there's some very, very simple things that we can do because we're in this elaborate self-deceit where government says it is acting in the interest of the people, but it's actually vested interests who are driving regulation, right? The lobby for the ban on importation of textiles in Nigeria was controlled by Lebanese, Indian, and Chinese businessmen who had established textile factories in Nigeria. And they had also taken a lot of concessional loans at low interest rates, subsidized interest rates, to build textile factories in Nigeria. Now, in 1993, when there was a round of bank failure in Nigeria, and the central bank did an analysis of bad loans, the sector with the largest contribution to bad loans was the textile sector. These are the same people that took concessional loans, that got government to ban the importation of textiles, that got credit at subsidized rates. The loans had gone bad, the jobs had not been created, but we had erected barriers for the benefit of business people who had basically taken benefits and privatized those benefits at the expense of the rest of the people. So these are the kinds of things that we need to change. But changing them also requires those things that Pastor John talked about, disciples, who will confront these things and deal with them. There are several other sectors that will create jobs in Nigeria. Another one is construction. One of the easiest ways to create jobs is to start construction sites. You get a lot of skilled labor, you get semi-skilled labor, as well as artisans working. The average story building, 4-bedroom house on 2 levels, on average, over the 18 months it typically takes using the traditional method to build, it usually creates about 60 jobs. But then, to deal with the housing industry in Nigeria, we're going to have to deal with cement and getting the prices of cement to be closer to the international prices. It's not an accident that cement in Nigeria costs roughly 3 times what it costs in the international markets. So it's not an accident that the person who controls the cement industry in Nigeria is also the richest person in Africa. Okay? We import structural steel, and structural steel in Nigeria costs about 1.5 times what it costs in other places. So in Nigeria, construction costs per square meter are about 2.5 times what they are in South Africa. These are the things that we need to fix. Government regulation that is actually stifling